So does it still matter if you win the SEC championship? This is a topic that came up a lot this past week in Dallas at SEC Media Days. Dean Legge and Ryan Curley were both over there, soaking up the Texas heat. Wasn't it? It was as hot. It wasn't as miserable as Atlanta
It wasn't as miserable, dude. It's miserable out there right now.
right
And
now. Oh yeah, yeah.
it's just yeah,
So
yeah.
here,
That's my response to that.
what's
But does
miserable? What's been miserable for years is losing the SEC championship game. We've seen multiple non-champions win the national championship, which is Alabama in 11, Alabama in 17, Georgia in 21. But Chris Doering, and it wasn't just Chris, but it was a lot of people. Kind of what's the point of the SEC championship game? Here's what Chris Doering's take on it is, and this is a guy as a multiple. He's won multiple SEC championships. He said, I think there's still major motivation to win the SEC championship game. Ryan, I'm going to throw it to you first. I have plenty to say about this as well. Why do you think there's motivation to win the league?
well, yeah, that's what I think. Yes, because you get that bye. That's one game you don't have to deal with, and that's going to matter so much. We talked about it in another video that we recorded earlier today. Health is going to be really important at the end of the season. Saw how much it affected Georgia's momentum, I guess is the best way to put it. I think that affected Georgia's momentum last year. I think that things would have probably felt differently if Brock Bowers wasn't dealing with an ankle injury. And three of your NFL guys, Brock Bowers, Amarius Mims, and Ladd McConkey, all in and out of the lineup throughout the year. That stuff matters. A week off, a week of not having to prepare for a game, that's a huge win later on in the season when this can be an issue.
Yeah, it's just I think there's a few things here. Um, there's a few things. First of all, the winner of the SEC championship game, I think from here on out, is probably going to be the number one seed without fail. There's a couple of situations where they wouldn't be the one. And in that scenario, if you're the one, you would, and the Sugar Bowl is available in the quarterfinal, you would go to the Sugar Bowl immediately. You'd know where you're going. There's just a lot of certainty. I think the number one thing is not playing the extra game. I mean, you just don't know what will happen. Even if you're playing Liberty, okay? Even if you're playing Liberty or, Wake Forest or whoever, there's value in rest at the end of a college football season. We've seen this. Georgia doesn't play Auburn the last game this season. They play Georgia Tech. And has that mattered in 2022 and 2021? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's better than playing Florida. I mean, and get emotionally wrapped up. So I think being able to plan that you're not going to play until New Year's and getting 4 weeks off, that will do a lot for the physical health. That will do a lot for the mental health of whoever it is. And you're the one seed, almost certainly. And again, let me throw it back to you, Ryan. If you're the one, you'll probably win your quarterfinal. I mean, you won't certainly. You'll be playing you'll play either the 8 or the 9. I mean, so, it's a game you should win. Maybe you don't blow them out, but you should win that game. Then you get to pick where you're going in the semifinals. And this season, the semis are, the Orange Bowl or Dallas. In Georgia's situation, I don't know what they would do there. I mean, there's no certainty of which. It might be which games played earlier. There's all sorts of things, but you get to pick. When it's Atlanta or Phoenix or Atlanta or wherever, then yeah, you get to play. You choose Atlanta, and they've chosen Atlanta, and that I think that helped them beat Ohio State in 2021.
Oh yeah, what was the other choice? Was the Fiesta that year? Yeah. That's where TCU beat Michigan. It was out in Phoenix.
Is that where it was? Yeah. But you'd never play out there. No.
You just wouldn't choose that. The environment would be different. You think about that. What was the breakdown percentage between Ohio State and Georgia that day, if you remember? I think that we were talking about 55-45.
I think Georgia probably had 60%.
You think it was 60-40?
Yeah, but, I mean, you're talking about Ohio State. You're not talking about – I mean, there's no one else besides Michigan and Ohio State can play with Georgia in terms of fans. I mean, Alabama – I mean, not really, man. Like, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, how many times have we seen Bama and Georgia play? I mean, I've seen it several times. Alabama has never had the majority of fans when they played in Atlanta or Indianapolis. So in Tuscaloosa, sure. Like Clemson, we're going to see. I'm very curious to see. It's going to be lopsided towards Georgia. I don't know how lopsided. In Charlotte, it was 50-50. So I if the game LSU playing in New Orleans, Georgia playing in Atlanta, I wouldn't even say the Gators playing in Miami. It's not the same. There's two programs have a very distinct advantage, perhaps three with Texas playing in Dallas or Oklahoma playing in Dallas. Everybody else, you know, SC at the Rose Bowl, I guess, but Georgia has a huge advantage with the Peach Bowl being right there. It matters a lot.
It does. There are scenarios where the SEC champion is not the one, and that's if a two-loss maybe
It's
wins it,
weird, yeah. It'd have to
or
be
whatever.
weird.
It can happen, and it could happen this year. Maybe,
Could.
probably not, but it the power of being able to choose versus just being thrown somewhere. That's a mental power too. Like we chose this. This is what we want. This is our strategy. All of that little stuff adds up to what you're thinking, but there there's just no world where I'm gonna say, yeah, you're better off losing the SC championship. It's
Why
just
would you want to
that's another
lose?
significant trophy. That's an accomplishment that Kirby cares about a lot. You hear how much he talked about how much he loves the SEC last week at Dallas.
Yeah.
He's been talking about that for years and how much this game really matters to the conference and to college football. He thinks it's one of the best environments in college football, and it is. So winning that game, and that's something that Georgia hasn't done well either under him, is win that game,
They've only
right?
won it twice. They've lost
They've
it
only won it twice,
three
and they've been in it.
times. They've lost it three times.
Yeah. So
Alabama twice and LSU once, and I may be missing a game.
I think that's what it is. I think
Okay.
two and three is his record in
Wait,
the
now
SEC.
I'm getting it wrong. They won in 17. They lost in 18. They lost in 19. They lost in 21, and they won in 22. Right, and then the law is 2-4. They're 2-4.
2 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen how obviously it's a different landscape with the 12, but that screwed them over several times, and it could be a scenario where, well, they end up having to play in Ohio State earlier on because they lost the SC championship, or whoever
Three.
it is, if it's Oregon or whatever. Those are the scenarios you get with it, but I think that the motivation to win it's even bigger now. That bye in a situation like this in college football, I think that's a huge reward.
Well, the, first of all, I think it matters a lot. I do. I don't think it's the end all be all. I don't think either of us are suggesting that. But I think that, you know, whoever the SEC runner up is should probably still beat the ACC champion. They should still beat the Big 12 champion. But the ACC champion last year lost their quarterback during the season. And that's what happens when you play sometimes. So, you could lose your quarterback in a quarterfinal, even against Liberty or Wake Forest or, Coastal Carolina or whoever the 12 is. So, then I just, no one, there is no strategic reason for losing. I mean, there's not in college football. There may be like in baseball or the NBA or something, but like in college football, there's never a good reason to lose. It just doesn't happen. So I think there's less reason now to win the league than there has been. That's not the same as is it still important? I think it's still very important.
It's just you get a little bit different of a reward out of it. But Georgia could very well make it to the. They could also not make it to the SEC championship and still win the national championship, and that was also still the case with the 14 playoff, as we saw happen twice, where a team didn't make the conference championship and won. I mean, TCU didn't make their conference championship and they made it to
They
the
made
national.
it. They lost.
Yeah, so there are paths for that, and those paths there's gonna be even more of them now, but. I just think that's such a huge game, and getting the power of that one next to your name, it's always mattered.
So
It's always mattered.
in the case of one other side note, and one reason why Kirby I think likes it so much, he talks about Mercedes Benz a lot. It's another opportunity to play in the facility where later this year the national championship, early next year will be the national championship game. So there's always I don't know why you'd play if you're not trying to win. I mean, why are you why are you keeping score? So I think it matters a lot. I think the old school folks, of which I would call myself one of them, it's just going to take a little bit of time to get used to this new world that we live in. Conference basketball tournaments, they don't matter. Conference baseball tournaments matter even less.
I
But
would
at
say the
least
conference basketball tournaments don't matter. You saw NC State made it to the Final Four, and that's because of that.
I was just going to get to that,
Okay,
which
all
is
right.
now it doesn't matter who you are still eligible to win the national championship until you lose your conference tournament. Baseball, it's not that way because everybody doesn't get into the conference tournaments, and they're horrifically boring. They're irrelevant. Georgia didn't play well in theirs this past season. We're still a national seed, so or a super. They were to host a super. They lost in a super regional that they host. So, but these are such they will be for seeding, man. I mean, like if you are the runner up in the SEC, you cannot be in the top four. Why? I mean, you're playing to not play another game. So there are a lot of different scenarios. Everybody's going to have to get used to it, but it's going to be fun to talk about. Make sure you're tuning into us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.